Looks like everybody's here. We're ready to go. We do have a closed session to go over three early graduation requests. At the end, I'll go ahead and pull up 331 if we're ready to get started. Katie, so you know, it's 6. It's 11:05. I don't know.
11:03.
11:03. All right. Hey, we just did policy 331 not too long ago, but we've incorporated the desire was to take what was the materials challenge language, because it used to be all in that same library and instructional
wasn't it like a separate thing from, it wasn't part of the district curriculum policy, right?
Right, it wasn't part of that. It was it was the library /
Yes.
materials
Right.
challenge, and we converted that to just the library
Right.
book. So we need to go and incorporate, because that's pulled out of that policy, incorporate it into the curriculum. And we worked under the premise that the desire would be to use that same process. But that's not the desire of the board, then that's fine. But that was kind of how the language that we carried over.
And then we also
then
incorporated increasing it to 2 parents on the policy
for the curriculum
council.
Yeah.
And some explicit language about appointing parents.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And
so that's what this first language is, the curriculum council expanding from 1 to 2.
Yep.
And then we'll vote for their top 3 candidates. I think we had some individuals who didn't vote for all 3. We want to clarify that even if you don't like them, you need to put
you need 3. To put 3. Yeah.
Right. Yep.
And then I didn't have any changes to page 1. Page 2, under program approval process, under number 2 and number 3, it says the group proposing the program will submit the proposal to the curriculum planning council. Can we just drop the word planning?
Oh. Yeah. Where
yes.
I just read that as okay. That's remain.
Is that we should strike it since that's current language, right?
Yeah. Just so that it reflects.
And then we probably need to do that here too.
Yeah, there's a couple of them.
Yeah, it's in number 2 and number 3. It says curriculum council everywhere else. That was the only 2 places that I saw where it had the word planning.
We felt this was redundant because the district administrator is on the curriculum council.
Right. And then under number 3, the curriculum council will review the program proposal and consult with the group proposing it for clarifications and or changes if necessary, period.
Mm-hmm.
All right, that's the editor coming out in me.
Let's see.
And then we move into the reconsideration of instructional materials, and I have some questions and some things for discussion on that. Any changes that you've seen so far, Ed, that you wanted to this point?
No, I really didn't have any comments on it.
Okay.
Those all look good. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Does that the other strikes make sense though?
Yes, they made sense to me.
Right.
I don't know about everybody else, but just
the only piece that makes me a little nervous is once in a while we'll have something that will come up that doesn't necessarily fit into the traditional course adoption timeline, in particular like high school. Thinking when Project Lead the Way came out with the partnership with NSA and Project Lead the Way, and we were selected as a pilot school to do the cybersecurity course.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like a 2-month lead time, not a year, if I recall correctly. But do we need any language that would give how do you put it, since the curriculum council meets quarterly, do we want any language where there could be an exception to that regular process?
Does
in
it
case
say
something
anywhere
comes
that it
up?
meets quarterly?
No, but on the curriculum council piece it does. We could always schedule
Yeah, I would say we
Meeting.
would schedule a
special
additional
meeting.
meeting
Yeah.
for something like that
Yeah.
versus, because we don't
Okay.
have any timelines in here for like
Right.
course proposals.
All right.
Oh,
Even
Just
though
schedule
they're
another
traditionally
meeting.
May, like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah, I would think you would just schedule an extra one.
that's fine. Then this is the language that we just carried over. So you had some thoughts on that?
We did add one part. We added an informal part that.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
I did,
Okay.
yes, I did like that. So, well, kind of my first question was. And I didn't go back and look at what we currently have for this right now. Is it say reconsideration of instructional materials now? Is that what the title of that is?
They were combined together with the library materials.
Oh, it was.
originally.
Yeah.
So
It was
all
all
in one.
encompassing,
Mhm.
okay.
Mhm.
Okay. So I just want to make sure we have a good understanding of instructional materials. These are specifically materials that are used in the classroom by an instructor requiring a student to read this material or view this video, or it's part of the day-to-day instruction. Is that what I'm understanding?
Mhm.
So,
That's how I take it. Is that how you take it?
I do too. It would be like, we disapprove of the Bridges math program and for the following reason. It would be big. I mean, it would have to be a lot of information as to why but it's one of those things like, they can't exit the room for that 30 minutes or just for that lesson. This is well beyond that. This is like with the whole
okay,
curriculum.
okay,
It's
so
resource tool.
I guess that's where I
See,
want.
I think that's a little broader.
I mean, it's a big, that would
I
be big,
think-
but what else would be smaller that they can't be?
Well, I would think an article or.
Yeah,
or a
if a
video.
parent objects
Anything
to,
that's used as part of the day-to-day instruction would be an instructional material.
Right,
I
so in our
agree.
case,
Yeah, yours would be different than mine.
yeah.
Yeah, because what we've seen is parents objecting to a particular book that their child has to read, or a particular thing that,
I can give an example this
Okay.
year that was smaller scale, but it was dealt with informally. So this would be step one was
Yeah.
with one of the tools we were using for current events. At the 3 elementaries, one elementary, we had 2 parents that didn't like that they felt it leans too left, and they researched the owners of who produced the show.
The
And
rap-
even though
rap
the
thing.
rap, and it was like a 4-minute clip, the kids love it. It just summarizes things very quickly. So we opted to look at their concerns. They laid it all out. We now use like Time for Kids for their current events weekly.
What?
We just made a substitution because there's many tools we can use and sometimes they're interchanged. But in that case, to just appease the parent and not have the child leave the room for that 10 minutes a week,
right,
we found common ground.
got it.
So
And
that would be
that's a
small.
great resolution. I'm thinking of, I know there's been a couple of instances where parents have objected to the selection of books that kids were given an option of five or 6 different books, but certain parents didn't want, they wanted another alternative to that, what was given. I would think that would fall under this as well. Am I correct?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So it could be a specific thing rather than just more of a
whole
broad,
program.
a whole program, right? That's how I'm interpreting it as a specific thing. I think back to when my own son was in 7th grade. The Spanish teacher at the time was using the Zodiac to learn Spanish. And I objected to that because that does not align with our personal belief system. And I did not want my child learning the Zodiac in Spanish or in English. And so I just went to the teacher and they assigned him a different assignment, you know, and so I would think that it would be something similar, right?
Yeah, and that would be like an informal.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so that's
The
where
formal
you
is
start.
saying, I want this completely removed for all kids. I don't think any kids should be
Okay.
having this. That's the formal.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I guess that's where I'm struggling with the way the language is written, because if it's a small thing, you know, and for some reason, if they can't find resolution in an informal process with the teacher about a particular thing, I'm hoping that those items would be able to be resolved informally.
Right.
But if not, then by automatically taking it to the principal, then it's become a formal process. And I don't necessarily think that all parents are looking to have it removed for all students. You know what I mean? Maybe I'm wrong, but
So we need additional language in the informal piece, you're saying, like where it says like you have like, when we talk about like the opt-out option.
because maybe the teacher is just like, I disagree with you. I think it's important for your child to learn this information. Parents like, I don't care. I want to talk to the principal. So they go to in the past, that's been the procedure. We send them to the principal, and then the principal starts with the teacher involved. You know what I mean? Like,
So
Yeah, you want the principal to be able to informally resolve it with the parent. as
yes.
well.
Because
and
I
that
don't want it to
also be part of the
automatically
formal
be-
request.
Mhm.
yeah, I don't want it to automatically be elevated to, right? This applies to every student.
And now if you can't handle it with the teacher
Right.
Yeah.
formally, yes.
Yeah. That's my concern here.
Just
is
another
that-
step.
yeah.
Yep, so we need like a C.
Does that make sense?
Yep, it does.
Are you tracking with me, Adam?
I'm tracking, I'm trying to, so if I can share this. Yeah, I'm gonna say this is an informal statement, where I'm struggling with this in general, is I have strong personal convictions about some things. And then I have to be pragmatic as well with. Personally, I would not want Margaret Sanger taught civil rights. I don't want her glorified in any way. I think she's, top 3 worst human beings of all time. That's my personal opinion. How are we teaching about it? When I get a complaint from a community member, why are we glorifying Margaret Sanger in the civil rights class? Immediately, I'm thinking, get it out. But how do we do it in a pragmatic way where that parent can easily address the concerns? And again, this is me informally thinking, because I don't know how to write this or convey it. But if that is a sentiment of one community member and then it becomes more than one, it becomes several, how does that then become, if I can just say, easily streamlined to address the issue? I agree with there has to be a formal procedure, right? You have to go teacher,
Yeah.
principal, whatever.
Yeah.
But if it becomes something where we need to address it, how do we make it happen in an easier way, I guess? Or less convoluted? Again, whiteboard thoughts, this is gonna take a while, I'm sure, in the summer. This is something I wanted to talk to you about too. So beat me to it. But yeah, and I haven't brought it up or addressed it with this group or anybody yet, but I've gotten maybe a dozen or so different phone calls, emails. Hey, what are we doing? Why are we doing this? Can we talk about it? To which I have said, talk to your teacher.
Right, and that's what I've continued to redirect as well.
And I've done it as a parent too. I mean, a couple of years ago, we've had this conversation. In my experience, when I've had an issue and I've went and sat down with the teacher, all 4 or 5 times, the issue was resolved.
Right.
My only question would be, that was, 2, 3, 4 years ago, whatever it was, the same kind of issues are coming back now 3 years ago. So did that teacher remove that kind of lesson-ish in that just because I brought the complaint and then the next year it happened again? Or you see what I'm saying? And I know I'm getting a little off topic here, but
No, I
this is a
understand.
broader
Mhm.
issue with this complaint, I guess.
So I put in language, if the complaint's not resolved informally with the teacher, the principal may meet with, or may we flip it, the family may meet with the principal to discuss the matter informally and seek an informal resolution for their student. I mean, the formal process comes when you're eliminating for
For
all
everyone.
students, yeah.
Got it.
And that needs to be a formal,
Yeah, and I understand that. I get from. Yeah,
and I get, and because I saw, the email or the communication, whoever had shared with me related to Margaret Singer, which, to be frank, I hadn't really probably should have known who Margaret Singer was from the impact and so forth. Maybe I just forgot, but in history, there are controversial
100%.
individuals
one
and
hundred percent.
wildly different perspective. And we have a policy
Yes.
specifically speaking of that we do teach those,
Yes.
and
We can't just selectively remove people that we
It'd be
don't like
with
from history.
the kids would never know, oh, Hitler,
Yeah.
they would,
Right,
or, and I'm, it's wherever they fall on the spectrum or the perspectives and, I think the more and more I read, it's Margaret Singer in particular is a very controversial person, which is revered and despised, or
well,
even,
so is Hitler.
Yeah.
exactly.
She's my mic drop in some of my political debates. She's the mic drop moment of several things.
Yeah,
But you don't know who she is. Here's what she did, and here's where she put them.
Yeah.
let's see.
But what would be up for debate would be based on this reconsideration of instructional materials. So what
Yes.
Yeah.
materials
Sure.
are being utilized, not do you know what I'm saying? So I feel like we've got to just,
And so there was I think, and
so,
I wasn't prepared to.
so there were certain articles, I
Yeah,
think,
videos,
that
articles.
that could be what is objected to. versus
And
the
if there was
content.
Yes, and if there was a way to teach about, let's use Margaret Sanger because she is extremely controversial. There was a way to teach about her historically, what she did, not pro or against.
Right.
That would be awesome. A couple of the videos and the resources that I saw were a little bit more, and again, I'm removing my personal feelings, but they were a little bit more one way than the other.
More on the positive contributions.
Sure, more on the positive.
I mean, because it's hard to argue that, yeah, she's the godmother of female birth control, aside from abortion, even other contraceptives and so forth. So yeah, there's awful quotes that she's,
Correct.
it's a very,
Genesis.
Yeah.
yeah,
Right.
and I remember the first time I learned about eugenics and so forth, and that's a whole movement that we probably don't talk enough about in school because it doesn't reflect well on
Right.
that time frame of that period.
Yeah.
The mandatory sterilization, and yeah, there's a whole lot of, all right. Anyways, I diverge, but
Yeah.
does this get to? I think we wanted that check that usually we would hope that most teachers, and I feel like we've empowered them to know that, look, if a parent or a family has an issue with, look to find an alternative activity for them. And I think we're pretty good there, but this gives that check or balance that if it's not resolved at that level, that they can go to the principal and say, hey.
Yeah.
I think we were gonna reference our controversial topics policy that we just passed too in here. In the
Okay.
informal part,
Sure.
because that would speak to the opt-out part.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Then that might be
Yes.
a good idea. Yeah.
All right, so we'll insert,
Mhm.
And that can even be put under A, not necessarily just
Mhm.
Sure.
I
at
think
B.
that's where it goes.
Yeah.
Can we, Maybe I'm
Because
getting,
any parent can opt out for just that.
Correct, and I guess that's where I'm
But-
getting to, is I wanna make sure
And
that
a small
parents.
number do, because you
Right.
know, we're not changing our, say, our second step school guidance program, but
Right.
if parents feel that strongly, then the child has an alternative. for that
Yes,
30
and
minutes.
that's what I wanna make sure that we leave in place, is an alternative for parents to have for their kids. For a particular lesson or a particular reading
Mhm.
assignment or whatever.
maybe back in if I'm getting too
Yeah,
far on this, but can we put it in here or somewhere where it has to be, the lesson materials have to be in a neutral, or taught in a neutral way?
it
Can it be
is
codified?
somewhere.
That's in our controversial.
I think it's in our
It's-
controversial, yes, I'm pretty sure it is.
Okay, so theoretically, I'm not even bringing this up officially, but that video that I saw, would that be against that policy?
Depends on the perspective of the individual watching the video.
Yeah. See, that's where I'm like,
Correct.
you know what I mean? Like, I mean,
I'm not sure I'm not sure you could find a video that would present Margaret Sanger in a neutral light.
I think if I were a teacher addressing that topic, and I remember this, I probably should have known better, but I remember writing a paper about Emiliano Zapata when I was in a Mexican history class. You know, it was a 300 level course, and I did my whole report on him, submitted it. I got a decent grade, but the professor said, well, I see you selected these resources, you should probably check these. And he listed like 5 others, which were the complete opposite perspective of Emiliano Zapata, that talked about all the rape and pillaging and
Yeah.
not projecting him in this revolutionary type leader
Yeah.
type light. So I think it's a responsibility of a teacher that when
Present both
sharing
sides.
those, that letting them know that, look, there's also
Yes,
the other, significant levels of criticism for these type
Yes.
issues and topics.
and I think
Yeah.
when you have those types of topics, that's really the only way you can teach on them, is to, because you're never gonna find a neutral
yeah.
video on Margaret Sanger.
Good. Yeah,
But you can find a video, that puts her in a positive light, and you can find videos that puts her in a negative light, and you can present both of them.
let's go.
And that's why, and that, to me, that's allowing our students to think critically,
Love it.
Facilitating. the
and
discussion.
facilitating
Yeah.
discussion and conversation, not only among their peers, but then with their parents at home.
Yep.
And that's what we want.
100% agree with
Yeah. And when teachers, it hasn't happened very often, but when teachers invite students to do presentations on topics, that's an area as well that, depending on, how you list the assignment, you open up the First Amendment right of the students on how they present and how they share that. Like we've
Right.
had, and we've done, it's been years since, but where a teacher, says, well, you can present on anything. Well, be careful. And we
Yeah.
taught people, be
Yeah.
careful, don't do assignments like
Right.
that.
Right.
Because then you open yourself up to First Amendment protections on
Yeah, right.
anything. Yes.
Right.
So,
Well, and it's also just important to know that you might find a video that portrays somebody in a certain way,
Mhm.
but then you might verbally address the other side of it.
Yeah.
And so if you just see the lesson and you see a video, you might not realize what came along with that video that was paired together.
Sure.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right.
So,
well, that's where the discussions
Yeah.
are.
Right.
and that's why these meetings, I would say are important to know that other side got there and
Yeah.
how that other side got brought in.
I love it. So in that situation, and I didn't follow this up, I just saw it. So that parent would go talk to the teacher informally, say, hey, listen, we showed this
We just watched this
pro
video.
Margaret Sanger video, but here's what we discussed,
Correct.
which is the giving you the both sides of the coin.
Mhm.
Okay, I like that.
Okay, so now that I have a better understanding of the direction of what instruction materials is referring to, I just underlined this because I just want to have a conversation about it. The second line, any adult citizen of the school district.
Right here.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yes. So unlike.
Unlike the library.
Unlike library materials. I feel like you need to be a parent of a student in the school. Because any adult citizen of the school district, first of all, where are they getting their information from? It's probably second or third hand.
Sure.
If they're not a parent.
Well, and how are they going through steps A and B? To
Exactly,
even get to,
correct. So I'm not comfortable.
where is that one
It's at
here?
the-
I think?
It's at the very top
Of the section.
of the
Oh,
whole
other
section.
section.
There you go.
Yeah. Any adult citizen of the school district. That's my personal opinion. I'm willing to hear arguments for that. From either Ed or Adam.
That's, I,
I think it makes a valid concern. It's got to be a parent or guardian, because otherwise, how could they be getting it firsthand, information? So
yeah, Julia, I absolutely agree with you.
So that's one area where I feel like it needs to differ from the library policy.
Can we
Yep,
say
makes
something
sense.
like, go ahead, Ed.
yeah, no, I think it's just as she described, any parent or / guardian of a student of the district. The other part, it's not just up to anybody, and any adult citizen doesn't really apply to this this
I
policy.
switched it to any parent or guardian of a
Yep.
student.
Yep,
Yeah.
perfect.
Would we want to say any adult citizen with firsthand knowledge or experience?
No.
Or do we leave it like this?
No,
Yeah.
I think.
I can just say in 11 years, I've never had a non.
A non.
But I don't
Yep.
really want to open it up.
Yeah,
I'm not disagreeing with you, I'm just letting you know that. The phone call I get.
Yeah, yep,
It's enough.
yep.
All right,
Then under the following procedure shall be followed in dealing with formal requests for reconsideration. So let's
Mhm.
under A. In this instance, I don't think that it needs to rise to the level of having 5 submissions.
I agree. That was one of my notes.
I feel that's too large of a hurdle to reach for this type of thing. Because this is specific to what's being taught versus what's available to students.
I'm good with that as well. I agree in this particular case. What we're talking about is, call it a more personalized focus
Yep.
Right.
situation. So I think you're spot on. That makes sense. That doesn't need to accumulate to 5.
So I just like to strike that last sentence there once the record, yeah.
I'm so.
I think we need the form still linked also
That's the wrong form, right?
Yeah,
Okay, I'm not crazy.
it needs to be
Well, they got that
revised,
to reflect, yeah.
yeah.
I clicked that 3 or 4 times thinking it wasn't going to the right one.
Just give me a second.
Jeez.
I know.
All right.
Do you want to add in how quickly the principal needs to respond?
Oh, yeah, it doesn't have a,
Yeah, I think we deleted some of that language and
yeah,
timing in it. So whatever we feel is.
and then we can probably make that a singular, the principal should review the objection. And then if you want to make it plural, put the S in parentheses. Because chances are it's gonna be a singular thing. Upon completing the study, let's see. Oh, and then this is probably copied right from the other one, which I've never caught this before, but in B and D, the last sentence, which use shall be effective immediately, I think you can just take out the word use.
B and D.
B and D, so that last sentence, or
It is awkward.
restricted use of the materials involved, which shall be effective immediately, just take out the word use at the end of, yeah. And then also in D, it has it, yeah. The only other one that I just put a question mark by that I wanted to discuss, decisions on reconsidered materials will stand for 5 years before new requests for reconsideration of those items will be entertained. Do we need to put a timeline on it? I don't know.
I wouldn't, I don't think G should exist in this one. Whoops.
It made sense for the library materials. I don't know if it makes sense for instruction materials.
All right, so just.
What do you guys feel about that? How do you guys?
Does that, with the absence of that, does that then give the opportunity for it to be submitted every year?
It would be a new class, right? Is it?
Well, not necessarily.
So if the 7th graders come in and there's an issue with Margaret Sanger, and then now they go to 8th grade, if the new 7th grade class comes in and the same Margaret Sanger thing comes up, they should be able to have that issue again, be able to submit this
Maybe
again.
we can make it 4.
But the same parent can't submit it because they wouldn't have a child at that grade, you know
Well,
what I'm saying?
sure they could. People have multiple kids.
Right.
Oh, I'm
After
saying
that
like,
years.
but do you, if this parent didn't have a 7th
Yeah,
grade.
but either way, is that
No.
productive use of our time if we've already gone through the process?
That's what I'm thinking.
Well, yes, and that, but that, do we, okay, so I get that, but do we make it 4 years or?
So it's
If
I don't know.
that did happen, right, let's say it goes through a formal process. And it was just decided that it shouldn't be used, and then it gets brought up in an informal process again, that'll get cut off right there. Do you know what I mean? Because the principal would get wind that the Margaret Sanger decision has already been made. And I don't think it would get to a formal process is what I'm saying. Because there would have already been a decision on that should have been removed. Does that make sense?
yeah.
I would leave it because I think that's decisions on shall stand for 5 years. That means they've appealed it. If we leave this letter F in there, I was going to bring up, do you want any of this, maybe this to go to the curriculum council as opposed to the board as a whole and empower that body or not? I don't care either way, but if something's gone all the way through to that final appeal, I think you at least want a time frame in which it can't be brought through that whole process again. That's extremely time consuming at all levels.
Now that you
Yeah.
explain it.
I don't think it, I think pushing it through the curriculum council, ultimately, it's gonna have to come before the board anyway. So, you know what I mean, like.
Then just leave it that board piece.
Yeah,
I would leave at least a certain amount of years before, and you guys know, I feel like 30 years has been, but I just don't see it as a productive use of time.
Right.
I gotta get that. I'm keep in my mind. I'm confusing this with the book, with the books, and I'm thinking like because curriculums, classes change, everything changes.
But this
Right.
very
So,
well
no.
could be a book still. Yeah.
It could be, but we're talking more broadly at this point, right?
And this is not. This is one parent objecting. We said to you, and I'm sorry, because I think I confused this in my head. It's one parent objecting to one thing. You went through the process. You went to school board told you this. Yeah, you one parent can't bring this back up to us for 5 years. But the lesson or the material could be objected to from a parent 2 years later.
That wouldn't be my interpretation is whatever that material was that was challenged
Right,
has already been ruled on. That cannot be challenged for 5 more years.
right,
And I think that's beneficial to the board as well. I don't anticipate this ever happening, but say there was a controversial piece, I think it also 5 years at least protects the board from saying, hey,
Sure.
now this year, let's get these 2 voted off so that we can get rid of that one item that the
Yep.
board ruled.
you're right,
Because if it's a year-to-year thing, they
Yep.
can just sit there and,
right,
or if there's no timeline, they could just turn around as soon as you're done and re-challenge. And
right,
go through the process.
yeah.
Not that I anticipate that happening, but
Yeah.
And I more brought it up just so we could have a discussion
no,
on
I
it,
think
because
it's a good,
I wanna make sure that,
Yeah, walking this through is
Right.
helpful too, and just read the board.
I understand your point.
I mean, the reality is the reconsidered material is probably gonna be a book or a video. This is probably the most
Probably.
likely.
Yeah, cause articles change from year to, you know what I mean, they're gonna use,
Constant.
that's gonna constantly change.
Okay, yeah, I appreciate you guys walking that through,
And-
because it does make sense. Because the board and the current board, whatever that current board is, reviews it, makes their decision. Yeah, that is a waste of time for you to come back to go through the whole process. again.
Right.
The same people to come to the same board that already made that decision.
Right.
And your point of, how boards change and whatnot. Both those people out or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
So okay, yeah, I did not look at this the way that you guys just explained it, but I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I do like that.
And because ultimately that is a board's decision at the end,
Yeah.
that
Correct.
you're adjudicating it if it
Yep.
gets appealed to that level.
Right,
And so I think if something does rise to that level, that decision should be honored at least for a time.
sure,
Yep.
yep,
Yes, I agree with you, Jason. I apologize to you guys. I did not see it.
No, that's, I
Yeah.
didn't think of that before. I think us walking through and having the dialogue just
Right.
helps. What are different scenarios that we could run into?
right, and that's why I wanted to bring it up.
Yeah, okay, so we're okay with leaving?
I guess I'm okay with leaving it.
All right, you don't want to change it to 30.
No.
Ed, are you okay with this?
Yeah, I'm good, but I will go back to the fact that we're not stating any times for the principal to review and times for the school board to review if it gets to them. There's no times
You're right,
we want to
Right.
put in a time, or we want to purposely leave it open-ended.
There should be a fair time. I mean,
yeah, the form will automatically be submitted to the principal of the appropriate school, the principal will initiate a review.
Do we want to use language similar to like open records requests where they don't have a specific days, but they use a time frame like as soon as practicable? Or,
Yeah, I mean, depending on the situation, we may want to have more time, depending on the circumstance. So, if we can get around by not having a stated deadline, that's cool. I just want us to all
Yep.
realize that. That's all.
Yep,
what do we put within 20 business days?
I think all the principals are gonna be reasonable, but
Or as soon as Because I think if it's a huge one, I would say, hey, that's not,
is practicable
Yeah.
a word?
it is.
is it really?
Well, it didn't pop up on my,
Yeah, you can get a spell checker.
Able to be done or put into practice successfully.
That's the legal term they use, yeah,
Okay.
I know, it
No,
sounds,
No, that's fine. I would use the same language for, school, if it goes to the school board, how quickly we need to react there as well. Down in F.
oh, see, we put it here, the principal's decision with them.
People can be called practical,
That's,
but people's actions are practicable. It's interesting.
okay, got it.
Came up with power.
Yeah,
I only know because of the open records law.
yeah, C, it refers to the appeal. Yep,
Oh,
and then D,
sorry, that should be, yeah. The,
yeah, we should put the timeline in D as well. Within,
So in regards to the timing of all this. And I'm trying to be fair to all.
mhm,
Somebody has an issue with Margaret Sanger. They might, the way that this is, they could potentially not see a board review for 60 days.
They
Yeah,
would have
but-
the option to keep their student from that.
yeah.
yeah, but going through that whole formal process is to remove it for future students. They would have had an alternative activity or something done for their own kid on the front.
Actually, then when you say it like that, I kind of like that. Because if you're convicted enough that this needs to not be taught to everyone,
Right.
I will take the 60 days and I actually like that better than,
Yeah, I think it needs careful consideration
yeah.
at each level.
Yeah, so if you really, that's your skin in the game, like I don't want next year's class learning about Margaret Sanger and blah, blah, blah. I'm gonna file a policy, I'm gonna wait 60 days and I'm gonna wait till my time at the board to be able to say my piece. I actually like that. Cool.
Okay. Is that good for first draft there, and then we'll update the or that is linked, okay.
We can look at it. There's gonna need to be changes.
Does the board meet? Does it get put on the agenda for us to then discuss it on a Monday? How does that work
They either
to?
do it as a special meeting, or it could be part of a regular meeting schedule. If there was a challenge like that, because it'd be an open meeting.
Yeah.
Do we want to put in there would be, in the next 2 scheduled meetings? I don't think we need to have a special meeting for it. We'll review the child materials at the next available as an agenda.
Where it says upon completing its study, I think you could say, the board will complete its study within 30 days. That would allow for 2
2 meetings.
meetings.
Yeah.
Let's see, the district level may be appealed by the original complaints to the school board in writing specifying, so they have 20 days to appeal that to the board.
Right. And they don't have to take,
At
like,
its discretion.
the
school
appeal
board
doesn't have to
has-
take 20 days. They have 20 days.
Sure, yeah.
So they
Yep.
could immediately, that's not extending it by 20 days. That's,
I think that comes to, I would leave it as it is, because then at that point, if it's appealed, the memo goes out, then it's just what works for us to schedule.
Okay.
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 In the
Cool.
agenda.
I'm
or-
fine with that.
Yeah,
I'm not,
Me too.
I don't think it needs to have a timeline at that level. We're gonna deal with it.
Thrown to the wall.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm good with the way it's written as stated, so it's good.
All right,
That's all I had on that one.
331.
The form looks good. Do we want to click in on that? Oh. Because then that's ready to go.
I feel like we might need to make some adjustments.
Yeah, I figured there would be.
Yeah, to number 9. And then maybe we need a title or a link or something like that they could. Sometimes if it's a video or something like that, what is the title of the material you wish to be considered? And then I don't think we need the checklist. Do you know, does that
Yep.
make sense?
Yeah.
Yes, it
Yeah.
does.
The way that it's done now. So if they go into I'm gonna mess this up, but if they go into the Chromebook or or wherever they found the issue, can they copy that link
And link it in
and link it
here.
into here?
That's what I'm gonna ask.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
All right.
I know there's proprietary stuff involved with that, but
well,
As
So-
long as we have the
update that.
title of what the
right,
Okay.
material is, we should
Okay.
be okay.
Yeah.
And then we have information on which teacher's class, what's the subject, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
To be
Yeah.
able to identify it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Let's move on to the public participation one then.
I was curious, was Jody ever able to find any other school boards that have something similar to this?
That's a good question, Ed. I didn't have a conversation with her about that before she went on a leave.
Okay,
I mean, I like the idea and concept. The downside to that is like at our last board meeting, you know, we had a public comment of an individual who just wanted to come and thank the board for their
Right.
support of the performing arts and
Correct.
so forth.
that is what I'm
And
concerned about.
I mean, they can always send that in a letter or a memo but
is this replacing that participation? I thought this was gonna be in addition to. So
It
they,
is, but the way the language is reading is that it's only at the school board meeting, it's only for things that are on the agenda. Well, if talking about the performing arts is not on our agenda, then somebody who wanted to come and thank us
Right.
would be prevented from
Yeah.
doing that. So that is my biggest concern with this.
I
in
agree.
theory, unless they tied it into the announcements. Because, I mean, I could tie anything into the agenda.
Hmm.
Well, this is an announcement.
give me
They would
ideas.
know that, they would know what their announcements are.
I mean, the whole purpose of it for me, is just to keep our meetings focused on what we're prepared to be talking about versus having somebody come and talk about the same thing that we've more or less discussed numerous times. And I just think that can be counterproductive to that evening's meeting, and us being as productive as we can to serve our community. And, you know, like I say, I do understand exactly what you're talking about, that somebody wants to come in and give us praise for whatever's been done in the district. You know, it's not appropriate anymore, but they sure can submit a thank you email or a thank you letter that will be read into the record if we so desire. So,
Yeah, nothing would prohibit Ellen from emailing you and saying, hey, can you forward this
Well-
or read this or?
Don't we have something where emails are not publicly read?
Yeah, they're
You
just not
request.
read, but they can be submitted to us. Yeah, we don't read what's
Right.
submitted
Got
in
it.
writing, but
Yeah.
it still goes to the
It's
entire
still
board,
going.
yeah.
The biggest question for me is, I just need somebody to explain to me. So somebody has. It's one public comment per person, per agenda item. So explain the scenario for me on that. That one, for some reason, is throwing me.
Is this new language the bolded? I'm sorry, let me,
yes, it is.
yeah, that is, okay, so that should be below.
It's to blatantly point out that
Yeah.
if you want to speak during the public comment period, it's got to be about an agenda item. And so, okay, let's say we had a new sport was going to be being proposed for the district, you know, and that's sport A. And then later on, we're talking about a new policy on flags or something like that, okay? I'm just saying that if a person wanted to talk about those two subjects, they would be allowed to talk about two subjects, you know? They're not limited to just pick the one they want to talk about.
Okay,
If why that would ever happen, I have no idea. It actually, you know,
yeah,
They could speak to every item on the agenda, but they have 3 minutes.
correct.
that's what I was trying to wrap my head around, is it,
We can tighten that up and keep their entire comments to 3 minutes. Probably would be appropriate.
okay. So in that
Oh,
3
I
minutes.
see what you're saying, because this right here could give someone the impression that I get 3 minutes per agenda item.
Yeah, I
Yep.
just,
Yep.
I'd like to
Great. Yeah, we can tighten that language up.
more definitively lay that out, because that's what was confusing me.
Yeah, I think
Strike that. I
just
think
striking it gets to the.
Yeah, and this lets them know that again, if anything you want, you can send and that's distributed to everybody.
Yep.
Blue. Yeah, are we okay striking that then, Ed?
Yes, yeah, to be
Yeah.
consistent, yes.
Yeah, you can come up and participate and join in with us if you'd like.
Yeah, I.
Yeah, 100%.
I wasn't sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, absolutely, man.
Yeah, you're welcome at any.
Yep.
At any. Meeting, yeah.
Feedback
And
is welcome.
And I can participate.
You
Okay.
just don't get a formal vote if they actually do a formal vote, which usually,
I don't
The
think
They just
the
don't
only time we
consensus,
typically
yeah.
do a formal vote is when we agree to send it to the board, for the
Sure,
entire board.
yeah.
So. That's, because we can't make any formal decisions
right.
in committee anyway.
No. The committee, we usually just come to a consensus and then.
Yeah.
Then we usually don't even do well, I guess there could be a scenario where somebody could really be a holdout and the other two members are like, nope, the whole board needs this and. I don't think we've ever had that. Terminate,
Yeah, you can go to any committee.
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, you're welcome at any.
Now, I don't know, I'll throw this out there. I know this is part of Cudahy's. I haven't seen a school district do this part. I was just concerned about establishing another separate meeting.
Well, here's the thoughts that came to my mind is I would feel uncomfortable assigning 3 board members to this committee because I think it could potentially become a lot. And I think it would have to be, if we were to do something like this, it would have to be, it would be a rotating basis or find 3 board members that are available to come at 5. Not all of our board members, like
Yeah.
Heather, I'm thinking of,
Yeah.
she sometimes doesn't get off of work till 5 or 5:30, so she wouldn't be able to participate, but.
I really, at the end of the day, I really think we don't need that other meeting. I mean, for me, it's if we've got somebody that wants to bring up an issue, I'd probably pull a couple other board members and say, hey, what do you think? Do you think we need to get this on the agenda and then talk to Jason about it? Then it's on the agenda.
Because we have our communication process is all laid out by policy and how to move things forward. Any board member can request for an item to be put on an agenda if they feel like, hey,
Right.
this is a topic I'd really like us to look to.
Right.
It just feels like if we do this, it kind of circumvents
Yep.
those other processes that are in place.
Yeah, plus I was confused by it. I was confused by the fact that that meeting would have an agenda.
Yeah.
And then are
I
we
know, I agree.
contradicting ourselves with?
Yeah, well, it's I modeled it after that other proposed language that exists, and that's how it operates. But let's just delete it. I'm good with that.
If this is a matter of, well, the other thing is, does it have to be at 5? But if we were to just, I don't expect this is gonna happen often, but I'd be here, I would gladly be here at 5:30 to be able to engage with someone.
I
And
mean,
then have the,
we could set up a scenario where, 2 or 3 board members are available to come and just hear people's comments.
And I feel like, can I just back up, because I'm
Yeah.
a member of this community
Yeah.
as well, and
Yeah.
I think it's 3 minutes that a person's allowed to speak.
Yeah.
It is a crap shot. Sometimes who's coming forward, what it might be,
Right.
and I know that's something new because up until this year, we had 0 participation
Correct.
for a very, very long time. And if we watch how the pendulum is swinging now, we are getting kind of back to 0, or it's a compliment.
Correct.
And I think there's nothing better than starting the meeting with that positivity
Right.
coming forward.
Right.
Occasionally, we have gotten a
Right.
tangent, a
Right.
negative tangent for whatever, but it's 3 minutes
Right.
and it's done. And they have a place to bring it and it's over,
Yeah.
they're heard, whatever the reason may be, and we move on. Have we ever reached the 30-minute mark? Maybe just once when we were in the heat of some
We did.
controversial things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We did twice, but.
Yeah.
But by setting up all these other sidebar procedures, I think we're really backing ourselves into a complicated corner here.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you.
yeah, the more I think about it, let me say the positives of this idea would have been, for me personally, I would like to be able to engage.
Right?
I like,
Mhm.
I like the dialogue, and then I would like, and I know we have an email process, we can add anything to the agenda, but I would like, if somebody comes in and says, here's what's up, we have a dialogue, can you put it on the agenda? Sure, and that's in front of several members. But to your point, and I like the positive side of it, I like being positive to start the meeting. If somebody comes in and speaks, well, no, because it would already be on the agenda. What I was gonna say was, if they come in and do community participation, can they ask them for their issue to be on the next agenda? But then we wouldn't be able to dialogue it either.
Yes, but they could make the request, we'd like to request that the board consider addressing this issue or matter that I have, and the board has the policies that would direct on just about every scenario, how would that be addressed? And that could be assigning to a policy committee. I mean, the bulk of the work is
Okay.
it's policy governance, and the board, for lack of a better term, guiding the district or setting the parameters for administration to carry out the mission and vision of the school board and the community via policies. So you have the policy committee. If it's something related to finance, it could be related through the financial committee, or but yes, it could be referred. What the board's prohibited from speaking to in and the reason why legal will usually say don't say anything, but that's not legally, you're not restricted from saying anything. You're restricted from taking action
Right.
on an item, or where the speech could be considered taking action, but referring it to a district procedure, saying, Mr. Talak would like you to bring forward a report and a proposal on how to address that issue, or a recommendation, or that the board's not prohibited from that. So if somebody had an issue, and that's something I could speak to too, I would recommend that, first, might be something I haven't heard of this concern. I would recommend that, we go back to the teacher level, the principal, whatever that may be, but we can speak to and address that. So if there is a concern that's brought up, yeah, we can refer it to that process. It wouldn't be cogent typically I'm trying to think of a scenario or an issue that someone could bring up in an open session that would be appropriate for the whole board to address at that open session. It's either something that would usually go to personnel committee, then to the board.
Yeah,
Policy committee, then
Yeah.
to the board. So in a way, they're kind of like circumventing that, which they can also ask for that to be done, you know, through the emails or the communications, that I'd like the board to look at this policy. Yeah, so I don't know, does that make sense? I don't want to belabor that a lot, but there's very few things that would, it could just bring the awareness though, through the public comment, and then the board deciding, you know, what steps do we take to address it. The desire to review it might be, yep, well, would like the curriculum council to look at that and make a recommendation.
that kind of, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah.
So if you address someone that has their 3 minutes, you address their issue. That doesn't mean it's part of the agenda.
No, so if somebody comes up and speaks 3 minutes, now when I would be careful in using the term address, because the board can't take action to resolve that in the sense that, oh, well, we're gonna direct administration to fix but the board could take action to refer it to, where do we
Yeah,
refer
I
that
just,
to?
if I
That
want
makes
to respond to you directly for what you did say, either I agree with it totally or I disagree with it totally. It's not,
I would be, that's where legal would say you'd be careful
Yeah.
to get into the discussion that could be considered decision making. So
Yeah,
once you start, the very first public comment that I heard after I was hired, but I was not superintendent yet, I came and was attending the meetings. It was shortly after one of the mass school shootings, and it was a parent who wanted the board to arm all the teachers
Okay.
and made that comment. You know, it would be appropriate to say, we really understand, you know, your concern about school safety, and we'll be sure to have discussions or conversations related to that. That would be okay. Saying, you know, getting in a debate in that, or
Yeah, saying.
I think that's
we
inappropriate. I think this
absolutely
is
are not going to
appropriate.
do that, and
That would
yeah,
be making a
would
decision
be
without
making a
having
decision.
it as an agenda.
Right.
Yeah. That's why most legal will just tell you, don't
Okay.
say anything, because then you don't open that
right.
Pandora's box, because where you get yourself into trouble is if somebody else says, hey, you guys discussed that topic and I wasn't there. And I would have liked to have chimed in on it, so. But a simple things like, yo, thank you so much to the board for supporting performing arts. People saying, yeah, it was a wonderful program, I had a chance to attend it, you know, there's nothing wrong with
Right,
that, that's not gonna be
right.
misconstrued. The other one where I think people could get themselves in trouble, and I think we have language against that if someone came to do like a public complaint about a personnel or a person,
Right,
an area, then the board can open up a can of worms that way too, if you start talking
right.
about that in an open session. Yeah.
but you allow them their 3 minutes to complain about a staff member.
We have policies are
Technically,
around that too.
if, I mean, this actually did happen. It was my very first board meeting after I was thrown into the president's position. And somebody came and asked for Jason's firing. I had no idea what I was doing. I should have, like, if that were to happen today, I would immediately shut that person down and say, I'm sorry, but this is a personnel issue and you need to follow policy and take this up with the personnel committee, and this is not appropriate for a public meeting and you are done speaking.
So that's this language right here.
Right. Yeah. So,
It's really my two issues or two boxes to check on why I really like this. We can really do anyway. I mean, if somebody comes in and says, I wanna talk about this, I want it on the agenda, we're right there on the spot. Say,
well, one thing,
Jason, would you-
I mean, it's not gonna screen it's certainly not gonna screen what, because somebody could put down on their card something else. But if they do that, I mean, technically, I would be able to say, you are not speaking about the
Yeah.
topic that you put on your card. I'm gonna ask you to please talk about that topic or not at all. You know, so I could do that.
I think limiting it to the agenda items could have the positive effect that maybe there's more engagement in regards to requests related to discussion about topics that are out there. Meaning right now, where you can come in and just voice whatever you want. I don't know, we don't get a whole lot of requests for certain items to get on an agenda item, or they're already on the agenda as we're working through
Right.
pieces, and maybe that's the board members doing a good job of bringing up, hey, let's look at this policy, or let's look at, which is appropriate. We've addressed a lot of those policies. I think that probably did come up from citizen or parent concerns or complaints and asking for us to review and revise. I do think our public comment overall and seeing other districts, and we've really navigated some very tumultuous times and done so in a very overall respectful manner. We've never had to have somebody removed. It's been pretty good overall.
Agreed.
Comparatively speaking, the board's never had to get up and leave a meeting. I mean, we've had neighbors who have had to
Yes.
deal with those issues.
I pray that never happens.
I do too. I feel like we've always been able to maintain, you know, decorum in here. Yeah.
Other thoughts on this for now? Do we want to forward this, or do we want to bring this back and think on it?
What if
Some
we-
more, take it.
What if we had something and it's completely voluntary? But I really like being able to engage with someone, and I don't like sitting behind a desk and not being able to have dialogue. What if we had something in there where, you know, Adam will be there at 5:30, or Julia will be there at 5:30 to have, what prohibits us from having a conversation? But just letting community know, you know, there will be
But I mean,
and then that
we
way
can do that, except that people are already contacting us and saying, can I meet with you? And can I, you know, sit down? I've said many times, I've said, yes, I'll have coffee with you and I will do this, whatever. But there's also been times when I've been requested to come and meet with a group of people, and I've kindly said, I'm sorry, but I'm not going to, you know, so I have my reasons.
Yep.
There's nothing requires me to.
Well, right, and
You know.
I agree with you, but that might even alleviate that pressure of spending other time meeting with groups of people outside of it. Hey, I'll be, you know, somebody will be here at 5:30 you know, before the board meeting. Would you like to, you know, address your issue then? Or, you know, they can always escalate it.
Yeah,
But just having somebody here,
have it more of a,
and then, because I do agree, and I love limiting public comment to the agenda items. But then I also feel like that's in a way limiting public comment.
people want to be heard.
But if
They
we're
should,
here to listen,
right,
come at 5:30 and I'll listen to you. And I will be here at every meeting that I have a half hour early. I would do that.
But why wouldn't that group, I appreciate that. Here's my concern with it. I'm thinking through the lens of a trustee, because I'm a Gateway
yeah,
board member, is I would have concerns of like Ram Bhatia, no offense to Ram if he watches the video, you know, from over in Racine, is scheduling, I'm going to schedule special Ram Bhatia listening sessions where Ram's one board member,
right,
and we all need to make decisions as a whole, where it would be appropriate. I'm like, well, Ron, why aren't we following our committee structure, or those pieces? So if it's a group that, yeah, we have concerns over a policy, well, then let's get on the agenda
right,
so the board can work together, because one individual
Right.
board member has no authority or
correct.
oversight. It's, you know, it's the board together as a whole. And so
100% agree with you.
I think the structures are there.
Yep.
That part of, my concern is if there are concerns from that group, well, why haven't you involved the players of the year? Why aren't those conversations being held? Or are you looking to are you looking to have a special interest, slowly built up to get that
Right.
favored or I just think the board stays unified the more that it's done and works more productively if it's done through formal structures, if that
Agreed.
makes sense,
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
people are there and included. And I would hate to have a couple, and I know I don't go and make very many gateway events because of all the things that I do have
Right.
going on as a trustee, and that does vary. But when it comes to the governance piece, it's reassuring to know that, okay, when we're doing the decision-making, there's part of those critical components. But I don't know, that would be my concern is.
I agree with you. The only reason that I would do that was you're being heard.
Mhm.
You're being heard, and your issue will be addressed because we'll put it on the agenda. The dialogue is, hey, and simply what you just said too. Somebody comes in with a concern about the curriculum. I hear you. Here are the proper channels as a reminder in case you didn't know, or in another situation with, hey, it's a valid concern. I'm one of 7. I will put it on the next policy, or excuse me, on the next meeting, whatever it's appropriate. I'll get with Jason.
Right.
Maybe this is policy committee, building and grounds, whatever.
Yep.
Your issue will be addressed. And that's the only thing I can say from 1 of 7 is I will help you
Right.
get your issue addressed.
Yeah.
No decisions or.
Personally, I've been willing to meet with individual people.
Yeah.
What I'm really not wanting to do is meet with a group of people. To me, that just, I don't know. I just think that that's more along this scenario of what you were mentioning, Jason, is that, a group of people trying to bend the ear of one individual, and trying to have influence over that person.
And which is perfectly all right for a group to want to advocate for that, but it should be done in a public type
Correct.
format. And where other citizens can also share their perspectives and views. So the board, when they're acting, has
Right.
everything taken into consideration.
Agree with you on that.
Right, well, we can ruminate on that. I get what you're saying, Adam, and I would like. Yeah, I don't mind meeting with anybody or groups either, and I don't know, I feel left out when there's a Facebook group of the well-informed parents of the Elkhorn Area School District, and I don't even get invited to be a part of it, and help provide communication there. I don't know, I feel circumvented. So for those of you that are out there waiting for my invite, but anyway, all right.
Speaking, this is a little bit off topic here, but it just reminded me, I know when we did the listening session last year, at the beginning of the school year, we were looking to possibly move that. You thought that the timing should be earlier.
Yeah, the teachers did not, they liked
the listening session, but not at the beginning.
Not the timing.
Not the timing of it.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to throw that out
So
there.
I think maybe looking at I think we look at maybe the first in-service day time frame or something. We need to work on that.
Yeah, I just wanted to.
Or November.
They like,
Let us work that through our
Okay.
school leadership teams and ask
Okay.
them when would be a best time.
Okay, because I want to be able to do that again,
Mhm.
but we need to find a more
We
appropriate
have a
time.
meeting tonight, I'll add it to the agenda.
We have a not a survey, but do we have I know you said several times, this came from the listening sessions. And then there was an action
Right.
item. Do we have results from the listening session? Were they beneficial to everybody?
oh,
I
did
think
we
they-
survey the staff to ask? No, we didn't do a survey.
No, I don't, I was kidding
No.
about survey, but is there, do we have a KPI that, hey, this was a good idea because it led to, I think there was
Oh.
something with the PTO time or
Jody
something?
took notes,
Mhm.
and I
Yeah.
think we revisited those notes. There were some things that we
We
did.
do.
take action
So
on.
there was,
Yeah.
so it was
There were several
beneficial.
things that came
Yeah,
out of that.
and I established the district advisory committee, as a result of that group has worked on prioritization and giving feedback on items from the listening session. So big ones, which people were shifting a 24 pay schedule.
That's.
Yep.
Flexibility on the sick leave, which was just in the handbook. Another one was, and we're still finalizing communication on that, and it's already been approved, compensation for attending IEP meetings after a certain time of the day.
Yep.
That came up in the original one. I would say probably our compensation that the board's looking at for staff, because that was another big one, was what that compensation level. Yeah, I can go back through. We've addressed quite a few.
Yeah, there's some.
Elimination of ProGrow points.
Oh, yeah.
That was on there. Yeah, so it was very productive in putting things forward that we were able to tweak and adjust on that.
Before we adjourn,
Yeah.
can we go back to the curriculum policy super quick and to the form? I just want to look at the last part of the form
Sure.
where do we want to say something about including the formal process? Like, I'm signing this saying I went through the formal process and I've read the instructional materials, or are we not requiring the informal process?
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Yes. I
Yeah.
think
That's a great
that's a
And you
great
put that
idea.
in there that I have gone through the
Yes.
informal process, and yeah,
Okay.
okay. All right, then we do have the closed session that we need to adjourn to.
Yeah,
We should have a formal motion on that.
okay.
I motion to adjourn to. Closed
Closed.
session pursuant to Wisconsin State Statute 1985.
I'll second it.
All right, all those in favor?
I think we have to do a roll
A roll
vote
call
on that.
vote, sorry. Roll call, Julia,
Yes.
Adam,
Yes.
Ed,
Yes.